haven't tried the Locklicious all-natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it feels, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
All right, family. Make sure everybody thumb up the video and share it live. Thumb up the video and share it live. We have a very powerful one for you today. I have the honor and the privilege of interviewing and highlighting an elder in the community that has been doing work for a number of years. I want to greet you first by saying shalom to you, Elder Yarah. Shalom, Zakane Yarah.
Shalom, 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 Maki. I appreciate you, man, for having me here. All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to our ancestors and the work that they done to pave the way. I appreciate you for having me here, man. And again, it's an honor to be on your show today. And, let's get it in, man. I'm ready.
All right. Thank you very much. And the first thing I want to say to you is, I want to make sure that I familiarize you with my audience. I'm sure there's a lot of people that know who you are, but you know how it is. Sometimes we go on a different platform and there might be one or two people who may not know. So I want you to just tell us a little bit about how and when you came into the Israelite community. What year did you come into the Israelite community, and how would you describe that transition?
Sure. I came into the Israelite community back in 1999. That was my full introduction as an adult or grown man. Previously to that, like most of around us, my family was raised in the Pentecostal church. My father's a Pentecostal pastor, preachers and teachers and brothers and missionaries and things of that nature. But I had family that was also a part of the Israelite community. Specifically Pastor Crawford Israelite Community of God Church, Cottage Grove in Chicago, Illinois. And so I've always had some teachers on that. We did actually do Saturday worship. We did keep the Shabbat in our household. And so those tenets have always been kept along with us in regards to that type of practice. And so from there, as I said, as an adult, I began to study more so in regards to our heritage. We can always go back. Some of us can go back to the time of slavery, but there are a lot of us who aren't. But I was under the understanding and the knowledge that we go back well beyond that. And so I always look for that in keeping traditions alive according to the scriptures, teaching that to my children and to my son as we move forward. So, those things have had an influence on me. And then I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, solid, I was introduced into the Israelite, I would say, social media, YouTube community. And with that, and that was through people like Black Jesus Minister and G-Con. I've been knowing those brothers for that period of time. And so in talking to them on other different platforms and different things like that, it sort of had me to come in this community. And then sort of getting into the debate thing. I was doing debates in high school and college. And so, debating the scriptures wasn't something that was a practice of mine, but I got into this community and seeing that there was a lot of things being taught and a lot of things that were being said by people who were not of our faith that was just outright ridiculous and untruth. And so I felt that I would, as David, that I would have blood on my hands if I didn't speak truth into this issue as the Most High gave it to me. And so I wanted to just deal with those particular narratives about who we are, and then direct people to, so let me get that out the way, and then direct people back to the Most High, keeping all statutes and commandments, and that being my tenet, always going after the one, never looking for glory, not big crowds. That's why I don't have a huge YouTube channel, but I just really want to, and not to say anything against people that do, but when people find the truth, they follow. And so I really do. Again, I appreciate you having me on and giving me this opportunity, as well as others that have, Sonetta and Solomon and other different peoples. I give honor to whom honor is due in those regards. Allowing me to come on their platforms. So
right.
I appreciate you for that.
All right, I appreciate that, man. And one thing I got to say is we're from around the same time. I know that you are my elder in age for sure. You are definitely older than myself. I might even look at you and call you the big uncle. You like an uncle to me.
I received
You know what I mean?
I received whatever I received.
And like yourself, I came into the Israelite community in 1994, and there's no YouTube, there's no Facebook. You know what I mean? There's no Instagram. Yeah. We had to go to the bookshelf, Maureen, when we wanted to learn.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? We had to go to the library. There was no Vimeo or YouTube or Instagram feed for us. We had to go to the library and read them books.
Absolutely.
So I always respect people, especially from that era, because I know and I remember what it was to acquire this information. People today have no excuse for being ignorant. Knowledge is so accessible. It takes great effort to be ignorant today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can.
All right. And with that being said, we're going to go straight forward. I want to begin in a place where people might not expect. So I'm going to say this first.
Yes, sir.
What is your general observation about the conscious YouTube community? And if you can, could you tell me who would be maybe your top 2 or 3 scholars on the Kemetic side that you actually rate as real and genuine scholars?
Honestly, on the Kemetic side, from what I've seen, I haven't seen. I'm just going to be honest. Specifically, I'm answering your question honestly, because I have not heard an entire truthful teaching without an agenda, without a confirmation bias. I have not experienced that as of yet. So if I had to put a teacher there, it would be possibly yourself. And I say that because I don't see the confirmation bias in you teaching in the way that you came and began to break down and to teach the relationship to ancient Kemet and to our people and even to the scriptures with all honesty. And I'm not gassing you up. People know me. I don't do that. But what I'm saying with the question that you asked me, outside of that, I don't see it. When it comes to a Jabari, I don't see it. A Dr. Reggie, at one point, they've had to even come away from that because what they found out, is that it wasn't what they thought it was. It wasn't what they thought it was. And as it said, and as knowledge increases, as the scripture tells us that it would, when people began to look into ancient Kemet and people like yourself really began to bring out the truth unbiasedly, they had to fall back. So now they're into ancestor worship and not into Kemetic worship anymore. And this has only been the last 2 to 3 years. Because when that Kemet on trial hit, they were all big Kemetic,
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. I'm glad that you pointed that out because a lot of people may have evaded that blatant truth that you're pointing out. That when the Israelite community formed Voltron and we came together to defend the Bible and the Israelite way of life and culture, that forced them out of the narratives that they were pushing.
Absolutely.
You didn't find any of them saying we're West African. All of them were saying we from Kemet.
That's right. That's right.
What Israelites don't know is that as Israelites, as a community, we deserve a round of applause.
Absolutely.
Because not only have we successfully defended the Bible, but time and time again, we forced them to shift their own narratives.
Absolutely.
And the problem that comes from that is the stakes are high. Many of these people are grown men with children. To be confronted with a truth that triumphs the truth that they hold is a powerful thing to have to wrestle with. I understand that. All of us were there at one time. We didn't wake up saying we was Israelites.
That's right.
We were all somewhere else.
So
we can resonate with what it's like to realize that everything that I learned may not be the truth.
That's right.
And the only problem is, though, and this is where I give you the utmost respect, is when we encounter truths that we see and recognize trump those which we hold, we are willing to change with it.
Yes.
The Bible says the wise change often.
Yes.
If you are truly operating from a place of wisdom, then wisdom will always have you in a constant state of spiritual and intellectual evolution.
Agreed.
And you represent what I see, one of those evolved Israelites in the community, because you're not coming with the I'm yelling at the corner and beating this down your throat rhetoric.
Right.
You're saying, okay, we're talking scholarship, we're talking methodology, then you're talking to the right person.
Yes, that's correct.
And I want to say that from me to you, brother, you've championed our position well. You are valiant. You are cut from a different cloth. And you are, quite frankly, among those very few who represent a breath of fresh air in the Israelite community. And I also want to be able to say live on the Israelite platform, congratulations on whooping Rob Orr's ass. Let's go ahead and say that.
All praises to the Most High, man. All praises to the Most High. And just briefly on that, just really want to backtrack, not so much on the Rob Orr thing. It's just, all praise to the Most High. But again, as you said, the understanding that studying the Torah and studying the Tanakh and the scriptures, if there's no change in your life, you're not really studying. You don't really hold the tenets that you learned dearly. And it will change you in ways that you never expected it to. Right? And so for me, that's always the litmus test, right? And when I say the litmus test, it's not about whether or not the scripture is true, but it's whether or not I hold those tenets dear enough and that my faith and my foundation says, now you have to change, right? And so, so family gatherings for me, right? Conversations now go a lot different, right? Because some of my family are still hold, my close family, they still hold to the more Pentecostal tradition, so we can have some discussions on faith and understanding in life. But when it gets down into where and who we are and what we come from and why we are here, it's always about going after the one, leaving the 99, and turning them back to the Most High. That's it. That original established relationship that he had with man from the very beginning. And so with that, so on the Rob Warren situation, I had a lot of people reach out to me and contact me about that debate, which he turns to the discussion. He didn't really want to have a debate. So he calls it the discussion. So I'll call it the discussion. But a lot of people, I think they didn't understand the method and the madness, right? Because my simple position is that if you say that someone started or originated something, then I shouldn't see anything reminiscent or likewise before it. right? There should nothing else be before that.
That's
right?
right.
I should see a fresh seedling, right? A fresh sapling, and then that tree sprouts and grows. But as we know, in those who came before us and came before Crowdy and Cherry, that they're just a branch of a root.
Mm,
Cannot
mm,
call them original.
that's right.
Cannot call them original. It's just like I said this to a brother the other day. Some people, they go to KFC, right? No plugging them, right? But some people like KFC chicken. Well, we know back in the day, they used to say KFC had the best flavored chicken because he had the 11 herbs and spices.
Hmm.
Never told you what those 11 herbs and spices was. Even today, right? They
Right.
keep them locked away. It's intellectual property, right? You can't even use it, so they don't even tell people, right? But what they can't do, even if they have these 11 herbs and spices that no one else knows about, right? Their own ingredients that they've added to it, they can't claim that they're the originators of fried chicken.
Come on. Talk. Come on. Absolutely.
You
I,
know?
I understand your point very well. And what you're pointing out is how silly the premise of these arguments are, which is similar
Absolutely.
to what I said to little Chris. I mean, Chris Harris.
You got it right.
How silly the premise of their arguments are. So the next thing that I want to ask you is definitely going to shake things up a bit.
Mhm.
So what I want to say to you is, from one scholar to another, how important would you say is the historical record is to understanding the Bible? And what I mean by that, before I have you answer it, is first that there are a lot of people that read the Bible in the world. There are Muslims who read the Bible. There are Christians who read the Bible. There are even atheists which read the Bible. A lot of people read the Bible. Everyone may not be on the same page as to how to hold the criteria and content within the Bible as actual and factual. Where do you stand in terms of placing the historical record as a point of validation for the Bible? Would you agree with the statement that it's very important to marry our understanding and faith in the Bible with the historical record?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that statement. It is 110% important, right? For us to be able to do that and to believe that. One of the things that we often chide about from those who are non-believers or those who are not of Israel, to simply say we don't take science into account, right? So therefore, the information we bring should not be validated or should not be ascribed to. Well, history is a science, right? It's a science of observation, right? Anthropology, archaeology, it's a science.
That's right.
It's a science. Sociology, it's a science. The issue with that is what they don't understand is that 85% of the world's archaeological discoveries are taken from what they've read in the biblical narrative.
That is a fact.
The significance of that, right?
It's a fact.
And because of that, it is validated as a historical record. Now, people will argue, oh, it's not about history. Then we often hear, no, it's just it's a comic book that has real places in it, simply because it says Jerusalem or it says the Nile Valley or it talks about the Nile Valley River doesn't mean that it's not doesn't mean that it's true. Simply because Spider-Man swings around in Manhattan, right? It's a comic book. But here's the difference with that, right? Here's the difference with that. We know who Stan Lee is, right? The originator of Marvel Comics. He has said to us, and we have video record of him saying over and over and over again, I created these fictional characters. Where's the record of anyone in the ancient Near East or in Africa or in the Americas that has found any record of any of our prophets or mores or teachers ascribed in the scriptures that says they made it up.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a very important point, and I think that may even escape and evade minds. Very important point. You know, when I hear people tell me that the Bible has no historical validation, that there is no archaeological data to verify the Bible, first thing I do is scratch my head, wondering if people are actually out there reading and studying. I'm
Yeah.
holding up a book which is entitled The Archaeology Study Bible. It has, let me go to the very end. It has exactly 2,000 pages. How do you write a 2,000-page book entitled The Archaeology Study Bible if the
Exactly.
Bible has no archaeological relic? I mean, it's
Exactly.
laughable, brother.
It's
It really
laughable,
is
man.
laughable. It's
It
laughable,
is.
man.
It
It's
is.
laughable.
It's laughable.
You know, one thing we don't doubt and one thing we're full aware of is when it comes to recordation, Kemet is certainly one of the top five, if not the top five, right? They have the highest recordation in the world, bar none, next to Mesopotamia, next to Sumer. That's a fact. We don't take that away.
Correct.
But what people forget is that someone having a plethora of recordation does not validate whether or not the things recorded are true. Because there are many things that were inscribed on the walls of Kemet that we know today to be lies.
No, to be lies. Absolutely.
So we don't boast that there's a plethora of information.
Yes.
We want to validate whether the information is truth.
Absolutely. We could go right into the Battle of Carmish. We know that they lied.
That's right. That's right.
We know that they lied.
That's right. That's right.
They
They know that they lied.
They know that, and they know that they lied. I was talking to a brother the other day about in the Latin, they use a term in fact check me if I'm saying this correctly. It's called a domino damnatia, and it's a practice that they took from ancient Kemet. When they would lose a battle or something wouldn't go their way, they will erase you from the record.
Mm-hmm.
They will chisel you off the walls.
That's right.
Right? And then they would create all of these massive steles saying that I conquered this land and I conquered that person and I conquered this person. But we know the actual outcome is that you lost the battle.
That's right.
We will often do that. You know,
that's right.
So we have to question those things.
The leaders and kings in ancient Kemet lied so often on their stele in recording battles that the way that historians and archaeologists today regard Kemet as telling the truth, they say that if Kemet truly conquered a nation, then they should be able to find historical records and archaeological data of Kemet close to those nations. Whenever Kemet is close to home, they more than likely didn't win the battle. All right. So we understand through history that there were several times in the history of Kemet that they had to go back and rewrite their records. For instance, the Hyksos period.
Absolutely.
They erased 200 years of history, which later caused major problems for them in the New Kingdom period, because there were many things that were present but were unaccounted for in the historical record. And the people in the New Kingdom period are saying, hey, what's going on? There's almost 200 years of history missing.
That's right. That's right.
So the thing is, my brother, I want you to just check the temperature right now. How do we hold Kemet as a standard to measure whether or not the Bible is true when you are actually recorded in history as erasing 200 years of recorded history, and you dare open your mouth to question and whether or not the Bible is valid or authentic? You can't speak.
It's if you look at what you just said and what you just talked about, we have the Palermo stone, we have the Abydos stele, we have Bubasite gate. They all give a different history and different timeline.
That's right. That's right. For instance, Sarnetta does a show. Shout out to brother Sarnetta. He does a show where he randomly calls up Hebrews and tries to catch you slipping, right?
Yeah.
By the way, shout out, because let me knock on some wood. never caught me slipping. Give
Right.
praise to the Almighty.
All
But let
praise.
me say this. So during his show, where he puts people in, like, the interrogation room, the interesting questions that he asks is he'll say, well, the Bible says this in one place, and then another prophet says this in another place. What interests me most about his questions and the community he represents questions the most is that they won't hold the very culture that they believe in to the same litmus test. Because
Absolutely.
if we go to the Abydos king list, it differs from the other king lists,
It
the
differs.
Turin Papyrus.
That's right.
It differs from
It
the
differs.
Palermo stone.
Yes, sir.
It differs from the king list of Seti.
Yes, sir.
No two king lists share the exact same details. So what are we talking about?
What are we talking about here?
This is why you always see me in dialogue, making sure that they are holding their own culture to the same litmus test that they bring before us. Because all I ask is for fairness at the bare minimum. If you're going to question me, you should be able to stand up like, don't be a murderer and ask me questions about murdering.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly. And that's why I appreciate you so much, because of your teachings in those areas and different things like that. They've had to back away. They've had to back away from those narratives because now they see. So just to be in an argument versus to be in a scholastic argument is two different things.
Absolutely.
And so they've had to come away from that. And so again, all praises to the Most High now. For sure.
If you could pick one or two among the top outrageous ideas of the Bible that people on the Team Kemet side have, what would possibly be the two most misleading, misappropriated, or just misguided notions that people on that side have about the Bible? Take your time.
Oh, wow. I think one is that we had that we as a people or a nation or burgeoning nation of Israel, that we had no writings, that we had no historical record, that we didn't exist as a nation until circa 600, 500, and sometimes, if they want to be generous, they'll give us 800 BCE, right? That type of ignorance, right? And then they're romanticizing of ancient Kemet, because what I often do is I ask them. They say, well, we are a Kemetic people. So I say, okay, fine, no problem. What dynastic period would you say your people hailed from? Because we know historians, most consensus of scholars tell us from the 12th to the 17th, almost 18th dynastic period, they consider that the Hyksos period.
That's right.
So that means if you're talking within that period, then you're saying you're Afro-Asiatic or Asiatic. Really, what are you saying, right? So now, if you follow along with the Hermetic hypothesis, you're saying you're really not African then.
That's right.
So I often ask them that. This is why I understand our good friend Jabari stays in the old kingdom, right? Keeps a lot of his narratives there because he knows the closer he gets to 1000, 1100, 1450, 1550 BCE, whether you go with the high or low chronology, which is another issue,
right?
And for how they produce their timelines, it starts that those narratives starts to slip away from them.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
This is why I say it's it's 3-card money. It's a sham. Nothing less than a scheme and intellectual dishonesty.
Absolutely. The next question I want to ask you is to get right down to the meat and potato here. So the argument now, and I say now because, again, they've been changing their narrative. As we bring out information that has effectively countered their information, they're forced now to reshape and even change their narrative. When we first did Kemet on Trial, they said there were no Jews in West Africa.
That's right.
No black Jews, no Jews, period. Now they say, okay, there were black Jews, but the black Jews that were there are converts.
Right.
The most interesting about that is that while they say that any oral tradition in West Africa that supports that West Africans are living there are the original tribes of Judah, it's misplaced and it's coming from Europeans and it's not to be trusted. What's most interesting about that is they don't hold that to the Dogon.
Nope.
The Dogons, their history is 99% oral tradition.
That's right.
99% oral tradition.
Uh,
The Ashanti, the Yoruba, their traditions are 99% oral tradition. So why is it that oral tradition is okay when it validates your argument, but it's not okay if it validates our argument? So my question to you is, if I was to ask you, or if anyone was to ask you, show us Israelites practicing Torah or having customs that are found in the Bible during the pre-colonial period before Europeans get there, how would you approach answering that question? Even if you need to share your screen, let me know.
oh, absolutely. I definitely like to share my screen.
All right.
One of the things that myself and a few brothers, if I may mention them, Orthodox Moor, Anonymous Hebrew, Yeshua, Ishakar, a lot of the brothers, what we've been doing and listening to you as well over the years and what you've been teaching is that we understand that the Israelite presence in Africa, in West Africa, so to speak, has been hidden. Our people were being persecuted for their beliefs, especially even in 1492. We have Askia Muhammad comes in and he conquers Mali in West Africa in the Shanghai Empire. And one of the decrees that he does, even though he follows and maintains the Torah, one of the things that he says is that if he finds, and I'm paraphrasing what he says, and I'll show you the sources in my presentation shortly, he says that he doesn't want to see any Jewish or Hebrew practices or rituals.
Sure does.
If you do that, it will cost you your life.
Sure does.
One of the tenets that Islam practices that if you're an infidel or that you don't follow Muhammad, right, that you could become a slave or subservient to them, right? They had a right to enslave you. One of the tenets also says is that if you convert or you accept Islam, then they can't enslave you. They couldn't enslave you. And so you had a lot of black Jews or Israelites, not conversos, but people who give you an oral tradition that they came from the Levant area over thousands of years, settled in those areas. So we're not talking about conversos. We're not talking about converts. And they will tell you, we know who we are in our lineage, in our ethnic bloodline. We know who we are, but we're going to practice Islam in the sake of our lives, right? In the lives of our children. That's really what they were saying, right? So we have many of these people still living in the west coast of Africa, still there. There are a lot of them still there. And so we see these, we don't see as much Hebrewism, so to speak,
Right.
recorded in the west coast of Africa because of that, because they were afraid. I just want to share my screen a little bit. So let me do that.
Okay.
So we could just get into, so people could see that we actually have sources. And that's another thing, man. I hear a lot of conjecture and a lot of things thrown around. But if I can't find a source for it, you didn't hear it from me. That's just pretty much what it is. So let me get that right there. Let me know if you can see my screen. Just let me
Yes, we can. Yep.
I appreciate you. And you just let me know. You can cut in whenever you like.
Okay.
Whatever questions you may
Well,
have.
this is your show. You're running the show right now, so this is all you.
All right. I appreciate that. So let me hide this. And so what you see is this something I've been working on? And you see my circuit here, 2020. So this is not something I just started getting into. I've really been putting this thing together for a number of years. So really breaking this down and going after the source information. And I just want to bring some things out, right? And so I titled this Reclaiming Africa, African Hebrews in Pre-Colonial Africa. The reason why we have to specify pre-colonial Africa is because they often like to say before they Sephardic Jews and the controversial things, and that's included in that, they wanted to say, no, if you see any Jews or black Jews or any mention of black Jews in West Africa, it's because the colonialists or the colonizers came in and converted them, right? So we have to go back pre-colonial times, right? That means we have to go back beyond the introduction most of the times of the Sephardic Jews coming in and listen to exactly what these people are telling us, the primary source information that these people are telling us themselves, that they are in fact indeed Jews whose history goes back to the ancient Near East into the Levant area and over a millennium. So let's just get into it. One of these days, I'm going to come on and I'm going to play what Dr. Ben actually has to say about it. But I wanted to say this because this is very important, right? Reclaiming Africa, the African origins of the Afro-Judeo-Messianic movement. That is a term that I have come up with. If it's out there already, I don't know, but Judeo-Messianic movement. And I'm going to tell you why I talk about that, right? Enslaved people brought to the United States represented about 3.6 of the total number of Africans transported to the New World. That's around 388,000 people, considerably less than the number transported to colonies in the Caribbean, including more than 1.2 million to Jamaica alone, or to Brazil, 4.8 million, right? So I'm telling people also, we need to be fervent in those studies in those areas, Caribbean and in Brazil, where you would see a lot of the practice still held today of a lot of our people if you really want to have the discussion, right? But we'll get into that later. Of those Africans who arrived in the United States, nearly half came from two regions, and this is very important. Zingambia, the area comprising the Senegal and Gambia rivers, and the land between them, or today's Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Bissau, and Mali, and West Central Africa, right? Which is where we find the evidence of the Shanghai Empire once stood, including what is now Angola. And if you study Angola, researchers will tell you now it's that suffix on the end, that Gola, is where the term Gullah derives from. And that's another area of study we're going to get into. The Gullah, it's derived from that particular region of land, right? The Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Gabon. So we know where most of the enslaved Jews came from West Africa, came from these regions, right? The Gambia River running from the Atlantic into Africa was a key waterway for the slave trade at its height, and about 1 out of every 6 West African enslaved people came from this area, right? The source on that is history.com. You can go to it. It's news. It says, what part of Africa did most slaves come from? So you can see the source on the screen at the bottom if you guys would like, just to record it or write it down for the listeners. All right. I'm going to show you this because I thought this is very important. Reclaiming Africa. This is a brother. His name is Ishmael Diede Hedera, right? And he says, as he's an historian from Timbuktu, he has found old Hebrew texts among the city's historical records. He has also researched his own past and discovered that he is descended from the Moroccan Jewish traders of the Abana family. As he interviewed elders in the villages of his relatives, He has discovered that knowledge of the family's Jewish identity has been preserved in secret. What? Out of fear of what? Persecution. This is a New York Times article going back to 2007, actually August the 7th, 2007, the world in Africa. So he's telling you exactly what we were just talking about as Askia Muhammad comes in, conquers Mali and Timbuktu, the areas of Timbuktu, I believe it around the time of 1492, right? He says that his people, they are in fact Jews. They're in fact Jews, but their identity has been hidden in secret, yet preserved out of fear of persecution. They were afraid for the lives of their children, right? And so let's continue. That's what he talks about, right? We brought up Haskia Muhammad. Although a faithful believer, Muhammad was not very well informed in matters of religious orthodoxy, and therefore took as an advisor the Moroccan reformer al-Magli, persecutor of the Jews of TORAH. That was his title. That was his title. So we know these were doing. Most importantly, these weren't Sephardic Jews that were persecuting him. This is a Moroccan Arabic, right, who was a persecutor of the Jews. Now, why would he be called a persecutor of the Jews if they didn't exist?
Exactly.
Right? And he was named that and given that position to help him put his realm in order. Why? Because those Jews, contrary to popular belief, those black Jews in West Mali and Africa didn't go down without a fight. That's another misconception. They were fighting for their lives, and so they refused to Islamic practices for a period of time. They refused to be converted into these things, and this is exactly what he says. In particular, to recover the possessions belonging to the descendants of the defeated Sunnis into subservient groups not converted to Islam. Establishing Islam as the official religion of the nobles was without doubt the only error of this statesman. From then on, it was no longer a popular religion, but an imported one that later was to justify the conquest of the Shanghai by Moroccan Muslims, not Sephardic Jews. You understand what they're saying? They're not talking about conversos. They're not talking about people being converted to Judaism by Sephardic Jews. They're talking about people being persecuted because they are Jews. It's a difference there. The source is the Britannica.com biography, Mohammed Askia. It's important to understand this, people, right? Let me go a little further because I want to be respectful of the time and the moment. Let me go here. Here it is, and I brought this out against Brother Reggie, and I don't think he kind of understood it, or if he did, he missed it, right? The brother that I just spoke about, Ishmael Diade Hadara, right? He was one of the he's one of the guardians now of some of the remaining libraries or books that were in the libraries in Timbuktu before it was captured and sacked by the Muslims, especially Askia Muhammad in 1492, right? But again, in the 12th century, he has a copy of the Quran, right? And according to the notes in the text, it was bought for a Moroccan king for a sum of gold. Here's this important thing about this, why I bought this out, and it went over a lot of people's head, but I'm going to try it again here because I believe your audience is a lot more intelligent, right? Because of what you teach over here. So it says in the 12th century, right? Pre-colonial times, the 12th century, this was bought into West Africa, right? It says in chapter 3, verse 3 of this Quran, it says it is he, God, who has sent down the book, the Quran, to you, Prophet Muhammad, with truth. Now listen to this last part, confirming what came before it. Now watch this. It says, and he sent down the what? The Torah and the Injil. So what does that tell us? In the 12th century pre-colonial times, people in West Africa, whether they were practicing Israelites or converts or Israelite converts to Islam, they still had knowledge of the existence of a Torah.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's exactly what that shows.
You understand? This is what I mean about people who have poor reading comprehension and confirmation bias, right? And Reggie looked really confused in my dialogue with him when I brought this up. He couldn't understand how I was making a connection, or if he did, he had to dismiss it because he said, well, you can't show us that they had any knowledge of a Torah in West Africa pre-colonial times.
You just did.
Like, what did they think it was when it said Torah? What did they think it was? It says, and the Injil. They also had a gospel. They also had a gospel. And so this is what,
and that's very, if I could jump in on you.
Absolutely, anytime.
And that's very important that you noted that it's also recorded they also had the Injil, which is the gospel in Arabic, right? Because they give us this notion that Christianity came from the white man.
Absolutely.
They give us this notion that we were influenced by the European slave traders, and they're the ones that brought us into Christianity. Absolutely. Even though, as you're pointing out now, and as many of us know, all throughout West Africa, during this period and even prior to this period, you had black people in West Africa who were Christian. You had black people in West Africa who were Muslim. You had black people in West Africa who were Jews. And all of them had knowledge of what the Torah is, what the Gospels are, and what the Quran is.
Absolutely.
Without European intervention.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's important. Without European intervention or influence. They weren't around. They weren't around. And so this is and we're talking about 200 years, 2 centuries before the transatlantic slave trade actually began, or the burgeonings of it.
Right.
Which came around during the time of Escape Muhammad around 1492. They began the Arabic slave trade, which is another thing we often don't talk about.
That's right. That's right.
Which is a more credible identifier of where we were taken as slaves.
That's right.
Right? And so these things are very important. I wanted to bring out something as well. Again, what this says, right? The Quran says, so woe to those who write the scripture with their own words, then say this is from Allah, in order to exchange it from a small price. Woe to them for what their hands have written, and woe to them for what they earn. Surah Baqarah 2:7-9. The reason why that's important is because Muslims would not change or alter their book. It was against their tenets. So you can't say, oh, no, the mention of the Torah or the Injil was added later on.
No. Muslims don't play that. No.
They don't play that.
No. Just like those, the scribes of the Torah, you are not allowed to add, nor are you allowed to take away. There are Muslims that don't even accept their oral tradition known as the Hadith, because they consider that as an add-on.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct, Morey. So this is what I'm saying. This is why we can rely on the scribes and the oral traditions of these people.
Yes.
There's nothing in there that you can shoehorn to say, oh, that's impossible, or to simply say, oh, it never happened. We're looking at it. We're looking at it. I wanted to get, and the reason why it's important, I wanted to go down to something really quick because I wanted to deal with the science. And let me find it really quickly.
While he's doing that, family, thumb up the video and share it live as we go into a quick commercial break. Thumb up the video, you guys, and share the live.
I wash my natural hair and my face with the same product. Because natural hair care is easy. Natural skin care is easy. Don't make it hard.
You got it?
Yes, sir. If you can see my screen.
Yes, it's on the screen.
Okay. And so then we're in the same presentation, but modern research. And I wanted to bring this out, right? I wanted to bring this out. There is something that they call, that I use, it's called qualitative methods in monitoring and evaluation. It's observation, participant observation in monitoring and evaluation. I want to talk about why this is important, right? Let me see if I can get to the link really quickly. Hopefully it allows me to do it. This is for teaching purposes only. So this is from the American University, Washington, D.C. And listen to what they talk about, right? Qualitative methods in monitoring, evaluation, observation, participant observation, and monitoring and evaluation, right? Because this is the method that we have to employ, especially when we're reading what's being written from scholars who are saying that they're observing Black Jews in West Africa pre-colonial times. Why, in fact, that is a science, right? This proves the methodology for it, right? It says observation and participant observation are both very important data collection tools that evaluators use throughout the project cycle. Evaluators use observation and participant observation to gather data from project inputs, outputs, and outcomes with regard to monitoring and evaluation. Observations generally refers to when an evaluator, that's an anthropologist or a sociologist, someone who's in a particular land, as an example, observes project activities in action. So observation allows the evaluator to see what is happening in the project. In contrast, participant observation refers to when evaluated participants, as he or she observes, talking with stakeholders and participating in project matters as a participant, the evaluator gains more in-depth understanding the project. The reason why this is important, because this is the methodology you use when you're reading scholars who are saying, we were in these lands, we were observing these people, they're giving us their oral tradition, and this is how we recorded it, right? That's the methodology that you employ, right? When you're bringing out this information. Because what will happen is they'll try to tell you, well, you can't say that. You're just assuming that. And there's no science and there's no roadmap to how you're getting from A to B. How are you calling these? How can you say these people who are claiming they're Egyptian Jews who have been in the west coast of Mali for over 1,000 years, their oral tradition, how are you relying on that information? Simply because of what someone else has said. Well, they're telling you is not just what they're said, what they're doing, their methodology is observation participation. Observing the cultures. They're observing the narratives. They're observing the phenotypes of these people. They're observing their practices that are different from the indigenous people of Africa who are around him who don't hold those orders.
Teach.
So these are the things that when we're going into this information, this is not some fly-by-night notion. We're actually studying what's being laid out. Now, if you ask these other guys out here to do this, they can't do this for you because what they're doing is only giving you conjecture.
That's right.
And I often tell them, when we present information, when you come back to us and say, no, it isn't. No, it isn't is not a rebuttal.
Somehow in the conscious community, that is That is an authoritative rebuttal. No, it isn't.
Exactly. No, it ain't. You can't prove that. Well, that's not a rebuttal, sir. What, you understand?
Man.
What are we? What am I showing you here? Right? Don't tell me something else. But let me get into. Let me get into. I want to talk. I want to bring this brother out because I think he's a good study. I study a lot of his information. Professor David Tuesday Adamo. He's a PhD. He's a professor. David, professor of biblical and religious studies in the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies at Kogi State University in Nigeria. He's also a research fellow at the University of South Africa. And you can see his credentials there. You can look him up, AdamoDavid.com. He goes into a lot of what we talk about here in West Africa, because one of the things that they also try to come at us with, well, you have no consensus of scholars or no PhD scholars. Well, where are you getting that from? You're making it up. You know, it's what they love to do, right?
That's right.
So, again, let's see. I'm trying to be respectful of the time here. As you see, I have a lot of information here, so I'm just trying to get to the highlights. Let's see. Yeah, let's see here. Brother Reggie brought this out, and I thought this was a great slide that I presented during that debate with him. This is by Israel Zangwill, right? So in a speech given in 1911 entitled "The Jewish Race," published in a collection of his speeches, Zangwill maintained that the Jews, though mainly a white people, are not devoid of a colored fringe, black, brown, or yellow. They are the B'nai Israel of India, the Falashas of Abyssinia, the disappearing Chinese colony of K Fung Fu, the Judeos of Luengo, the black Jews of Cochin. Herodotus often talks about the Jews of Cochin or Cochin. He often mentions it in his writings. The Negro Jews of Fernando Po, Jamaica, Suriname, the Dagotans, and other warlike nomads of North African deserts who remind us what the conquerors of the Philistines were like. If the Jews are in no metaphorical sense fathers of all these people, then all these peoples are brothers one of the other.
That's right.
You understand what he's saying here, family? He's saying, listen, the Jews are scattered. They're scattered. And he says you can find them almost anywhere in the ancient Near East, in China, in North Africa, Jamaica, the Caribbean, Suriname. You can find them almost all over this entire planet. This is what he's saying. Does not the scripture tell us that we would be scattered to the four corners of the earth?
That's right. That's right. And this is more of a contemporary source.
Absolutely.
And we have even ancient sources. The Greek historian Strabo says that there is hardly a place in the habitable world that has not admitted these tribe of men.
Absolutely. And so these are the things that we have to understand. Going back full circle to your initial question to me earlier in the interview, is that why do I hold the Torah and the Tanakh to be historical, and how important it is? Because it tells us what now science and scientists are now finding out.
That's right. That's right. That is right.
And I'm not, I don't talk a lot about DNA because that's not my stick. I've learned over the years, stay in your lane. I stay in my lane.
Right.
But there's some brothers who are proving this and showing this with the migration patterns.
That's right. I'm going to give them a shout out. Shout out to Genesis 49ers. Shout out to the brother Yashu.
Absolutely.
I've been trying to tell him for a while. I would love to have him come on the show as well. Maybe you could reach out to him as well for me.
Absolutely. I'll reach out to him as well as the brother Orthodox Moore in Anonymous Hebrew. These brothers are huge. They're huge with this work. And they're constant with this work. I speak to them almost daily to a degree. This work is important to them in understanding first the science of DNA, why it's important, and how the migration patterns line up with the scripture. This is the angle that we're taking and we're using it for, right? And so that's why, it's important for us. And people often quote this, they often quote the scripture, here a little, there a little. This is what we're saying about us in the community. We can get a full picture of what's being told to us, but I have to take from you, Maury, Zion Lex. I have to take from these brothers over here. I have to take from these brothers over here. And if it lines up with the scriptures, we can move forward.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so this is how we have to approach this. Once we get to that place, we're impenetrable. We're impenetrable. We're impenetrable. These arguments that they like to have, like I said, there's no weight, no basis in them. I spend a lot of time laughing at these guys. Spend a lot of time laughing at them. I won't go into the Duganton tribe, but they claim that these people are told they have a whole oral tradition about who they are. The Duganton tribe, you often hear them saying, "Well, the Duganton has nothing to do with an Hebrew Israelite," and they say that because the Duganton have a long-standing presence in West Africa and a oral tradition that goes back thousands of years. Right? Some have even connected them to the Dogon. That's another thing I'll get into another time. But here it says there seems to be little doubt that the Jewish blood has largely been mixed with that of the Berbers living in the Moroccan and Algerian Sahara. In fact, the Berbers are said to have been one-time Jews.
That's a fact.
And you can read this in the Jews' Corner. Go ahead, Art.
Right, that's a fact. They're known as the Jews of Maghreb.
Absolutely.
The Maghreb Jews, absolutely.
Absolutely. You can find this information that I'm bringing in the Jewish Quarterly, revised. I think that's that says 4375. According to another tradition, we're talking about their oral tradition. They are descended from the Philistines driven out of Canaan, right? There is a tradition that Moses was buried in Timson, right? I looked that up. It's Timson. Yeah, I don't know why it's pronounced that way. It's African. I'm not African. I don't pretend to be. But y'all fact check me on how that's pronounced. And the presence of a large number of Jews in that part of Africa is attested not only by the many sacred places and shrines bearing biblical names, which are holy to the Mohammedans or the Muslims, as well as to the Jews. They're not talking about white Jews. They ain't talking about no Sephardic Jews. But also by the presence there of a large number of Jewish sagas, which Bassett has collected in the work cited above. They have a lot of Jewish, they have records by scribes. So if we have Jewish sagas, that means they had Jewish scribes. That means they were, we can deduce logically that they were practicing Hebraic or Jewish rituals.
That's right.
So this is what I'm saying. When we're going into this information, they'll skip over everything but the right thing. They'll get to everything but the right thing when these guys are bringing, they're reading about the Daguerreotypes, because more reason, they see the same information we see.
Of course. Of course. In fact, I want to point something out to you for a moment. I'm going to share my screen as well. I want you to weigh in on something that is a recent development within the last month and a half. I know you've seen it, but this may be the first time that we are hearing your opinion. I'm going to play a video, and I want you to weigh in on what the person in the video is saying after the video is over, all right?
Yes, sir.
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Yehonatan Elazar de Mota. I am the current chairman of the Obadiah Alliance, which was established in the year 2015 in the city of Miami, Florida. Many people have been asking, who is the Obadiah Alliance and who are these Rabbanim who are part of this Betin? The Obadiah Alliance was established in order to assist those Jews who have been marginalized and disenfranchised from the contemporary Jewish communities, wherever they may be around the world. It is our mission and vision to educate and to empower those Jews who have been estranged from their ancestral faith and tradition. For that matter, the Obadiah Alliance was organized with this vision in the year 2015, namely Dayan Jacob Yosef de Oliveira, Dayan Eliezer Tabor, Rabbi Hananiah Cohen, Rabbi Ariel Abel, Rabbi Haim Obadia, and myself as sitting Dayan as well. You should know that the Obadiah Alliance is comprised of Rabbanim and Dayanim who are experts not only in Jewish law, but also in various disciplines of academia, such as linguistics, sciences, and anthropology. These expertise permits the Obadiah Alliance to be able to rule on many cases of Jewish law, not only in cases of monetary law and civil law, but also in cases of Shatar Berur or Berur Yahadut, in cases of issuing Jewish certificates and also verifying and establishing the status of Jewishness of those who are seeking that. Up to this day, the Obadiah Alliance has been able to help various persons in Europe, Eretz Israel, the United States, the Caribbean, and South America, establishing Jewish identity of those who have been estranged from the local communities. As such, the Obadiah Alliance has a global vision to continue to help those who are in need of empowerment. שלום עליכם לכל חכמים שנמצאו בתור כל העולם. Blessed and with peace be all those who are found throughout the entire world. It's been about a month now that the Obadiah Alliance has issued a ruling on the Israelite identity of the Igbo people who are found throughout Igbo land and outside of Igbo land. They are numbering about 40 million in population scattered throughout the world and Nigeria. There has been much talk about.
Now I gotta say something. So let me share something with you.
Yes, sir.
In speaking with one of our brothers who's from Igbo land, who's now residing here in California, the author Remy Ilona, he cites that there are not 40 million Igbo in Nigeria. So when the rabbi just said that their ruling is that the Igbo are the biblical descendants of the Israelites and the Igbo number in the 40 million, he's not exclusively referring to Igbo in Nigeria, but even to their descendants in America, the Caribbean, and other parts of the African diaspora. Because
Yes.
it is known through history that many of the slaves that boarded slave ships were from among the Igbo people. Hence, we read in the book, The Kidnapped Prince, about Oliado Equiano,
Yes.
who knew that he was an Igbo, right?
Yes.
So I
Mm.
want you to weigh in on the recent decision of the Obadiah Allowance, which is the Sephardic body, ruling body that determines the Jewish or Israelite identity of Jews of the diaspora. What are your thoughts on their ruling, and even more specifically on the implication of their ruling?
First of all, again, all praises to the Most High for this particular time that we get to see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears the confirmation of the Most High's word being true, that Jacob, Israel, in Malachi 3 and 6, that we are not forsaken, right? We are not forgotten, and we will not be destroyed, right? And over the millennia, they have attempted to wipe out the name of Israel. In Psalms 83, they come confederate against Israel to wipe our name out of the earth, off the face of the planet. But the Most High says not so. So I think that for us, this is a time to celebrate. This is a time to give thanks to the Most High that He has held true to His word.
That's right.
And now we see the great awakening, right? We see the great awakening, because before the great falling off, there first has to be a great awakening, so that those who are allowed and will be allowed to come into the doors, into the safety, into the citadel of the Most High, that they have time to get in. And so these are the things that we have been hoping and our faith has been in to see. The evidence shows that among the 40 million Jews our brother talked about, that these are Jews who are dispersed all over the world.
That's right.
That includes you. That includes me. And listen to this, even a step further, right? One of the things that he said was documenting, giving certification, which includes birth certifications. So our generations, and our brother Anonymous Hebrew and I have talked about this, from generations to generations now, we will be birthing nation of Israel.
That's right.
You understand the significance of that is that now we are an established nation within the earth.
That's right.
Within the earth. And in the earth itself, the governments itself now must recognize our ancestors, recognize the things that we've been through, recognize us as a people and as their descendants, and more importantly, recognize that the God of Israel is not just a byword, or it's not just something that we can dismiss, but He is real, because no other deity has spoken a word that has come true, like we read in our Torah and the Tanakh. So this is a great time for us. We should be supporting that in every which way that we can, monetarily so, financially so, spreading the word. This is how we shake the tree.
That's right.
This is how we shake the tree. This is important to us. And so now the narrative shifts again, more or less. It shifts again. Now they must say, right? Now they must say that if you're a Jew, then show us that now you're directed descendant from these Igbos.
That's gonna be the new thing.
That's the new thing. But you know what? You're already ahead of the game, because this is why the work that you're doing now, showing Hebrewisms and Israelites in West Africa and the Americas, is so important.
So important.
It's why this conversation is so important, and no better time than this to do that. So again, like I said, this is a time. This is a time for a great celebration. We'll be able to practice our feast days. We'll be able to keep our high holy days the way that was intended by the Most High for us to do so, and for those things to be honored, to establish and to have, even in our places of employment now, that those who are forced to work on the Shabbat you get that day as a religious holiday, even in the secular sense of it, right? So that's why these things are so important on a scale that most of us don't even really understand right now. But
I'm gonna go ahead and say that
huge.
not only are you validating and showing and proving that that's authentic, but as these things are coming out in the media and as they're coming out in the researches of brothers like yourself, we are more prepared, more equipped to not only deal with the conversations that challenge our identity and our narrative, but we can also present published work. So I want to do the luxury of giving honor to our brother Remy Ilona. One of his more recent books is entitled An African American History from Israel through Africa to America. And in this book, Brother Remy connects the African Americans and the Afro Caribbeans with their Igbo ancestors in West Africa. And he is a West African writing that. So when Rabborn challenges you on
Yes.
the genesis of the Hebrew Israelite doctrine, what he needs to remember is he can't just begin in America.
Can't do it.
Because we have Africans on the continent in West Africa who are actually publishing works to establish that point.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. And so this is why he couldn't understand. He kept saying, well, why are you bringing up West Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Goes exactly to what you just said.
Exactly. Another one of his books I want to take the time to point out is Hebrew Igbo Republics, Culture, Religion, and DNA. And I have several of his books, and I can tell you that first and foremost, Remy Ilona is a lawyer. So when he writes from the position of evidence.
Yes.
He writes from a position of how to put together and frame a credible and meritable argument.
Yes.
And he's also, through his studies, he's an ethnologist. He's studying right now in UCLA, right? I believe he's in either the master's or doctorate program with UCLA, right, to go deeper into these histories. Yes. So we have a person and people, because he's not the only one, on the continent of Africa who are saying the exact same thing that we are saying. So you're watching, as it were, the rod of Judah and the rod of Ephraim, or you're watching 12 tribes connect intercontinentally.
Yes.
And it's a powerful thing to be alive today as Israelites, because me and you remember that 20 years ago, most people didn't know what an Israelite is.
Didn't know what it was.
YouTube took us to a different level. Do you remember when you had to really explain to people what an Israelite is?
You had to really explain. I'll tell you, the only people that knew when I mentioned what an Israelite was over 20, almost close to 30 years ago. Yeah, I'm telling my age. While I was in college, and I got into a discussion with a brother from the Nation of Islam. And we were speaking in front of a group of about maybe 30 or 40 people in the hall. Yes. And as I began to talk about Black Jews and Israelites then, he was the only one that understood what I was talking about, right? Only the one that understood what I was mentioning. But where we go now, it come from a bigger community now had started to come about, had been around for a while. Brother Ben Amin, I'm from Chicago, so Rabbi Ben Amin, was very prominent in Chicago during that time, and so we see a lot of these things that are now just coming up. So for most people who think it's just a fad, I tell people you're sadly mistaken. This is not a fad. This is not, just the latest and greatest thing. This is what we've been giving our lives to. This is our lives. This is our history. And if you don't feel that it's you, it has nothing to do with you understanding and believing the truth, because then we can talk about Isaiah chapter 56 and we can go a little bit further one of these days. And so this is what I tell people, like, look, when you really want to get, talking about, as the brother just said, and as we just talked about, in this generation, in this generation, with this understanding that we have, I'm raising my son as an Israelite. You see what I'm saying? I'm raising my son as an Israelite. And so in his generation, he's an Israelite teaching other Israelites, and will be teaching his children Israelites. And now with what we've just heard and what we just learned, now the world will recognize that what he's been teaching and what he's teaching his children is true and correct.
That's
So
a
all
fact,
praise
brother.
to the Most High.
All praise to the Most High. Let me say this to you while we're bringing this to a wrap and closing this discussion.
Yes, sir.
I look forward to having many more dialogues with you. I see you as a very powerful brother. Even though for most people, they're just starting to see you come on this stage, because you know the Sarnetta stage is a big stage. And
Yes.
even though you've been behind the scenes and on other platforms, you as I know that when you go to Sarnetta, it's like a different, demographic is coming your way now. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure if you have Facebook or Instagram, all of a sudden now you're getting requests from Amin Ra, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's
What I
right.
wanted to mention now is Brother Garfield, during Black History Month, among the many European scholars that he invited, one of the black scholars he invited that I was surprised to see is Bruce Haynes. Bruce Haynes is a person who is married to a European Jew, and he's a black man. And what's interesting about Garfield inviting him to the show is Garfield didn't even have the man's book. I'm not sure, as a person who has a podcast himself, as a person who runs a platform, if I'm going to interview you about your book, I need to schedule an interview a little bit after I purchase your book, just out of respect.
Just out of respect.
That way I could be able to hold your book up as we're dialoguing. So Garfield didn't even have his book, which was telling, because Garfield said to him at one point in the dialogue, he said that I don't know where the Israelites get the notion that there's Jews in Africa. Even in your book, you said that there's no black Jews in Africa. And Bruce said, wait, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
I didn't say that. The presence of black Jews in Black Africa is well documented. It's in my book.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
let me tell you, man.
It's wild out here in these YouTube streets.
It's wild out here in these YouTube streets, man. Shout out to Bruce Haynes. He wrote a book called The Soul of Judaism, Jews of African Descent in America. Family, make sure you get this book, man.
Absolutely.
Make sure you guys get this book. So I obviously want to bring you on to have a more focused conversation.
Sure.
And involve you in many more dialogues. But for the time being, could you share with us your social media, your YouTube channel, platform by name, as well as your Cash App, so the community that I represent can also begin to support you financially as well?
Sure. Sure. You can reach me at Elder Yarah. That's ELDERYARAH, Elder Yarah. On YouTube, you can reach out to me. You can reach me on Facebook, social media, Yarah, YARAH, Yarah bin Nazar. That's Nazar, not as in Nazareth, but Nazar as in the root. But you can find me on social media on that platform again, Elder Yarah on YouTube, as well as Yarah bin Nazar on Facebook, and you'll see many things of what I've had and lessons that I teach and things that I put up. In regards to my Cash App, because, and I just got beat up about this, because I really wasn't on social media to pull in that area. I don't have a Cash App for that, but I will establish one. You'll see, you guys will be able to see it on my social media page today. I'll make that adjustment because I hear your wisdom in that. So I will establish that today. But I am writing. I'm in the process of writing a book. Hebrew is not Greek. So I'm in the process of writing that, and I'm really not dealing with the linguistics. I'm dealing with what we've been told is that the only thing that we have to go with is the Septuagint, and that it was written by Greeks. But clearly, The Greeks themselves say that Plato and all of those guys were learning from the Egyptian Jews.
Yes. Yes. This
And
is
they were
important.
taking the knowledge from those travels into Egypt and bringing them back home and really plagiarizing our work. So this is a reclamation of our work and what we're doing and what we have done, what has been done throughout generations. There is a quote that is out there, is very prominent. You can find it. It says, "What is Plato but Moses antithesis?"
Nice.
Powerful quote. And
Nice.
so we have to understand, who we are, where we are. I'm just trying to knock down the big arguments.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I look forward to having you on very recent, maybe even again this week, as early as this week, if you're available.
As indeed.
I'm looking to bring some powerful minds for a special show. I'm not going to say about a lot on YouTube, but I'm going to tell you privately after the show.
Yes, sir.
I think that if we come together on a round table, that it would be a dope conversation for the community. It definitely speaks to some of the current events as well. So,
Yes.
in closing, I want to say to you, brother, what do you think is necessary to achieve unity in the Israelite community? In the first half of our conversation, we talked about some of the most relevant issues or the most relevant topic in the conscious community today, which is always the Hebrews.
Yes.
Even though they tell us that the Bible's a fairy tale and it's nothing, we
Yes.
always seem to be, year after year, the most relevant topic in conversation on every single one of those platforms, which kind of also lets you know that there's an agenda.
There's an agenda.
So, I say to you now, to switch gears and to close, could you share some lasting thoughts with us as an elder on what you think is key to achieve unity among Israelites in light of the fact that you have Israelites that identify as messianic or non-messianic? What do you think is key in bridging that gap?
Great question. Again, let me say again, I appreciate you bringing me on, Moray. Although I may be your elder in age, you're my elder in the spirit. That's just how I look at it. And so I appreciate that with your knowledge and wisdom and understanding as well. But I think that the key to bridging the gap is what you're doing right now and what I've always seen you do. Bring people together, bring others on like myself and many other people that you have in the past and currently do, and let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. Because when we read the scriptures and study, especially in Proverbs 31, it talks about, most people only talk about how to find a virtuous woman. But within those verses of scripture in Proverbs 31, well, people don't call it scripture, but I'll say Proverbs 31. But within those wisdom teachings, it says that while she's at home building her house and buying fields, the men are in the gates of the city. What are they doing? Discussing the scripture. They're discussing politics. They're discussing how to defend the land. They're discussing the things that keeps the land and keeps the nation safe. That's important. So we need to have those open dialogues and discussions. It's not that we don't all have to agree on every tenet and every practice, because that's the scheme of the adversary. And the Hashatan is anyone that comes against Israel.
That's right.
But what we all should be able to stand firm on is the tenets in the Torah. We should be able to stand on that and build from that, right? With that comes respect. With that comes honor. Give honor to whom honor is due. We should be able to stand on that, build from that, and then have a vision to leave something, which was Abraham's promise, to leave something to the generations and the generations and the generations after him. So we have to come together to be able to do that. You have always been doing it. You're doing that now. Again, and so that's the thing that I feel like we mostly have to do. I myself have been a part of a think tank we formed in honor the Yahweh War Machine, and it's just the think tank that we had established some years ago with Christians, Muslims. Actually, Rio Nkosi, one of the top battle rappers in the country right now, Rio Nkosi was one of the founding members of that. Orthodox, more anonymous Hebrew, and myself, Gideon Israel, and a lot of other brothers that I was able to connect with, and to really just discuss things that the Most High has given us, questions that we have, things that we heard, and come together and work them out within ourselves. I'm not really worried about what the other nations are doing. I'm not worried about what the other nations are doing. My concern is with my household and with Israel.
That's powerful, brother. That's powerful. And so with that being said, brother, I thank you for coming on the show. It's honorable to see elders in our community who are standing strong, leading us in many ways. I look up to you, my brother, because at your age, someone having so much experience, you shouldn't have to enter these fields. We should have able-bodied younger men that are out there doing that. The elders deserve a break.
That's right.
But one thing is always true about the class of elders among Israelites historically. They are cut from a different cloth. Even the elders want to get some blood on their sword.
Yes, sir.
So I salute you, my brother. I give you the utmost respect. And I hope that we can come together again to have more meaningful dialogues and talk about those relevant issues outside the community, within the community.
Yes.
Come together as a think tank with those ideas that can help strengthen our community. It's going to take people who are humble.
Yes.
It's going to take people who are knowledgeable. It's going to take people who really love the Creator to make it happen. And I see all of those qualities in you every time I watch you speak. You know when a man loves the Almighty, when you hear and watch him. And you have all of that, brother. So it's been an honor. I look forward to having you on several times over. I'm going to allow you to give us some closing thoughts of inspiration.
Again, the scripture tells us how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. We should always look for that. We should always strive for that. And just because it says brothers, that doesn't mean that's not including our sisters as well. Oftentimes in Israel, we seem to talk about them as a second notion of second-class citizens. But I will tell you, if you study the Torah, that's never been the case, right? They were never to be looked at as second-class citizens, but they would be looked at as the keepers of the house, the realtors in the family. Proverbs 31 tells us that, teaches us that without women, there would be no Israel. We have to always keep that in mind. So I wanted to say that to the sisters as well, because oftentimes our platforms are devoid of their wisdom and their knowledge and understanding. And so I really wanted to say to the sisters as well out there, we appreciate you as well for the work that you do, seen and unseen. And again, to you, Brother Zion Lexx, it's been an honor. Like I said, to be respected or recognized in any degree by your peers is always an honor that we all should hold to the highest degree and give all praise to the Most High, man, for the work that he's doing. He can't be defeated. That's how I stand.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And I'm definitely going to say hallelujah to that. With that being said, family, I want everybody to enjoy your day. We will be coming back tonight with another special topic and possibly even some more special guests. And we might even have Elder Yarah if he's available this evening, because I'm telling you, we got some surprises this week. With that being said, may everyone have a great night. Shalom and love to you all.
Shalom, fam.
haven't tried the Locklicious all natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it feels, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is the bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.